Do you consider yourself to be a dreamer, a realist, or a critic? I'm going to take a guess that you're most likely going to say realist. But the point of this video is that no one is just one of those things. And to get the best from yourself and from your team, you need to know which of those roles you're playing and why. Hey, how's it going? This is Scruffy Leadership, a YouTube channel about management and leadership aimed particularly at software engineers. My name's Ben, and I've been a leader and a manager in the tech industry for over 25 years. In the mid-90s, Robert Dilts observed the way that the Walt Disney Company approached brainstorming, and based on that, he devised a very simple model known as the Disney Creative Strategy. Now, I should stress up front that while it was designed mostly for brainstorming, and that is one way it can be useful, it's actually much more broadly applicable and useful than that, as I'll try to show you in this video. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, in this model there are three roles or modes that you can be in: dreamer, realist, and critic. So the idea is you start out as a dreamer or a group of dreamers. And that means you cast your net wide. You consider all kinds of wild ideas. You ignore reality and you ignore constraints and you dream big. The questions you're asking here are, if nothing could go wrong, if there were no constraints, what would your vision be? What would you love to do? What would you think would be a fantastic way to approach the current problem? Next, you move into realist mode. Here you apply some reality. You look through the list of ideas you generated in dreamer mode and you ask yourself which of them is actually realistic, which of them could be workable, given the constraints imposed by the world. You also ask what would actually be involved in implementing these ideas. So you come up with a rough plan, including costs and timings, for example, or you might even produce a detailed plan. The questions you're asking at this stage are, how can we achieve this vision? Do we have the money and the people we need? What will the plan be? Finally, you move into critic mode. You should at this point have a short list of potentially useful ideas with plans attached to them, maybe only one or maybe a few. And now you tear them apart. You pretend not to know who came up with the ideas. Maybe it was just you and you're being the critic for your own ideas. And you try to find flaws, reasons the plans might not work, reasons to reject them. In this stage, the questions you're asking are, what could go wrong? Is this really the best idea we can come up with? What could make it better? How will our CEO react to it? Is it actually a good plan? Now, at the end of critic mode, if any plans have survived, you can feel pretty confident that they're solid. It doesn't mean no more work needs to be done on them, but it does mean you can consider the creative phase complete. The project can now move on to more detailed planning and implementation. You can imagine these roles being played by different people. So you might have a dreamer team, a realist team, and a critic team. But in practice, things aren't usually set up that way, and the way the model works is with the same people moving from one role to another. So it's important that everyone involved in the process understands the process and what role they're supposed to be playing or what mode they're in at a given time. So if you're leading the discussion, you might say, okay, everyone, great work on the dreamer phase. Now we're going to move into realist mode. It sometimes helps actually to literally move into a different room or find another way to signal the change in mode. So perhaps if you're all on Zoom, you have everyone change the color of their background, or you can even leave a gap of a day or so between the stages. Now here's where the idea becomes helpful beyond brainstorming in that structured way. The point is that it can be helpful in other situations to explicitly acknowledge what mode you're in, out loud or just to yourself. I'll often hear colleagues say, I'm in dreamer mode right now and here's what I'm thinking. And this works. The point is that they're simply expressing an idea without yet being concerned about constraints or cost. You shouldn't shoot the idea down, but you should understand that that can come later. Or it might not. It might be that by expressing an idea in dreamer mode, someone just wants to let you know their aspirations. They might say, in dreamer mode, I'd love to be CTO one day. They're not looking for you to jump into realist or critic mode and explain why that's not going to happen. They just want you to know what their ambitions are. Another reason this can help is if the person coming up with the ideas isn't in charge of the constraints. So maybe, for example, you need someone to come up with an idea, but you don't currently know what budget is available. Perhaps the budget will be determined by the plan. And this is why the Disney model can be such a useful idea for a leader or a manager. It gives people a safe way to express ideas without them being received in the wrong way. And similarly, if somebody expresses a wild idea, you can ask, is it okay if I go into realist mode now? And that gives them the chance to say yes or no. And if they say yes, it means they're prepared for you to test the idea out. And remember that in this model, if you criticize an idea or you show why it's a terrible idea, you're criticizing the idea, not the person that came up with it. It won't always feel that way to the person whose idea it was, but if you're explicit about treating the idea as having come from dreamer mode and that you're now going into realist mode or critic mode, it can be easier for them to see where you're coming from and not take it so personally. Think about it maybe like this. How often do you hear someone express an idea and then someone else in the room says immediately, oh no, that won't work? Of course, the person who came up with the idea is probably going to be a little less likely to share an idea next time, but in the short term, the real problem is that the idea wasn't given enough space. Maybe just considering the idea would have led to a better idea. Maybe if everyone knew they were in dreamer mode, someone else would say, oh, I like that, and imagine if we added this to it. The Disney model is really simple, but it can be used in various situations, most commonly either in brainstorming or just to let other people know that you're in dreamer mode or that you want them to be in dreamer mode. This can also help with psychological safety, as it's a good way to create a safe space for wacky ideas. If you want to know more about psychological safety and how important it is, check out the video that's on the screen now. And if you've got thoughts or questions about the subject of this video, why not let me know about them in the comments below? And the same goes if you have any ideas for subjects you'd like to see me cover in future videos. Bye. See you soon.